Have you heard of Zapora? This video is about one of the Bible's most intriguing and often overlooked stories, the story of Zapora, Moses' mysterious first wife. Zapora is a figure who doesn't get much attention, but her story is packed with cultural significance, spiritual depth, and a few moments that will leave you questioning what you thought you knew about the Bible. Have you ever wondered why Moses, the great leader of Israel, faced life-threatening danger from God himself? Or why his wife Zapora had to step in to save him in a way that has puzzled scholars for centuries? Zapora's life is filled with mysteries: her heritage, her marriage to Moses, and the challenges she faced being married to one of history's most important figures. In this video, we'll uncover the layers of Zapora's story, exploring her cultural background, her crucial role in Moses' mission, and the controversial moments that make her a figure of great interest. We'll delve into the scriptures that reveal her strength, courage, and the unique position she held in the unfolding plan of God. Zapora first appears in the Bible in the book of Exodus, during a critical period in Moses' life. After fleeing from Egypt to escape the wrath of Pharaoh, Moses finds himself in the land of Midian. Here, in this foreign land, he encounters the 7 daughters of Jethro, also known as Reuel, a priest of Midian. The Midianites, descendants of Abraham through his wife Keturah, Genesis 25:1-2, were a nomadic people living in the region of modern-day northwest Arabia. The introduction of Zapora happens in a dramatic scene at a well, a location often associated with significant biblical encounters, such as those of Isaac's wife Rebekah, Genesis 24:11-20, and Jacob's wife Rachel, Genesis 29:9-10. Wells in the ancient Near East were crucial meeting places, not only for drawing water, but also for social and communal interaction. Exodus 2:16-21 states, "Now a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away, but Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. Moses agreed to stay with the man, who gave his daughter Zapora to Moses in marriage." In this passage, we see Moses, despite being a stranger in a foreign land, immediately stepping into a role of protector and provider. The shepherds who attempt to drive away Jethro's daughters represent a common challenge faced by women in that era, especially in the context of a patriarchal society where men often dominated public spaces. Moses' bravery, defending the women and assisting them with their task, showcases his innate sense of justice and foreshadows his future role as the deliverer of Israel. This encounter also sets the stage for Moses' relationship with Zapora, which begins not with a grand introduction, but with an act of kindness and heroism. When the daughters return home earlier than usual, their father Jethro is surprised and inquires about the reason for their quick return. They explain how an Egyptian man, Moses, rescued them from the shepherds and even watered their flock. This prompts Jethro to invite Moses to their home, where Moses is welcomed warmly and eventually agrees to stay with them. Exodus 2:19-21. They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man who gave his daughter Zapora to Moses in marriage. This hospitality was typical of Middle Eastern cultures, where the practice of offering shelter and food to strangers was a valued tradition. Jethro's gesture of giving his daughter Zapora to Moses in marriage reflects the customs of the time, where marriages were often arranged and daughters were given in marriage as a sign of alliance and gratitude. Zapora, whose name means bird or little bird in Hebrew, becomes Moses' wife, and this union signifies more than just a marriage. It represents Moses' integration into Midianite society. By marrying Zapora, Moses becomes part of Jethro's family, which provides him with protection, social standing, and a new beginning after his flight from Egypt. Exodus 3:1. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. This verse indicates that Moses not only married Zapora, but also took on responsibilities within her family, tending the flock of Jethro. This integration into Jethro's household further solidified Moses' connection to Midian, and set the stage for his eventual return to Egypt as God's chosen deliverer. Zipporah's heritage is deeply rooted in the ancient history of the Midianites, a tribe that traces its lineage back to Abraham through his second wife, Keturah. This connection to Abraham places the Midianites within the broader family of nations that descended from the patriarch, yet they maintained a distinct identity, separate from the Israelites. Genesis 25:1-2. Abraham had taken another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuah. This passage shows that Midian, the ancestor of the Midianites, was one of the 6 sons born to Abraham and Keturah. The descendants of these sons, including Midian, became separate tribes, each developing its own culture and religious practices. The Midianites, though related to the Israelites, were considered foreigners in the broader biblical narrative. They were a nomadic tribe known for their trade and pastoral lifestyle, often moving through the arid regions of the Arabian Peninsula. This nomadic way of life influenced their cultural and spiritual practices. As a daughter of Jethro, a priest of Midian, Zipporah would have been well versed in the religious traditions of her people. Exodus 18:1. Now Jethro, the priest of Midian and father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Jethro's position as a priest suggests that the Midianites had an organized system of worship, likely involving sacrifices and rituals. Though their practices were distinct from those of the Israelites, Jethro is portrayed in the Bible as a wise and God-fearing man, indicating that the Midianites had a reverence for the divine, even if their understanding and worship of God differed from that of the Israelites. Zipporah's Midianite heritage and upbringing would have shaped her worldview and spiritual understanding. The Midianites, while acknowledging the God of Abraham, likely incorporated other elements into their worship, as was common in many ancient Near Eastern cultures. This background set her apart from the Israelites, who were bound by the covenant established with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and later, the laws given through Moses. The marriage between Moses and Zapora would have required careful navigation of their differing cultural and religious backgrounds. Moses, raised as an Egyptian prince and later called by God to lead the Israelites, would have had a distinct understanding of God's covenant with Israel. Zapora, on the other hand, brought the influence of her Midianite culture into their union, creating a dynamic that was likely both enriching and challenging. Exodus 18:12. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. This verse highlights an interesting moment of cultural and spiritual exchange. Jethro, a Midianite priest, offers sacrifices to God, and Aaron, along with the elders of Israel, joins in a communal meal. This event signifies a moment of unity and mutual respect between the two cultures, despite their differences. It also shows the potential influence of Zipporah's family on Moses and the Israelites, as they shared in religious rituals together. The differences between Midianite and Israelite practices also created potential sources of tension. For example, the Israelites were strictly monotheistic, worshiping Yahweh alone, while the Midianites may have had a more syncretistic approach, incorporating different deities and practices into their worship. This contrast would have required Moses and Zapora to find a balance in their household, particularly as Moses was being shaped by God to lead the Israelites according to the divine commandments. Numbers 25:1-3. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women, who invited them to the sacrifices to their gods. The people ate the sacrificial meal and bowed down before these gods. So Israel yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger burned against them. Although this passage refers to the Moabites, it illustrates the broader issue of Israelite men being influenced by foreign women who led them into idolatry. While there is no indication that Zapora led Moses astray, the potential for cultural and religious conflict was present in any marriage between an Israelite and a foreign woman. This underscores the uniqueness of Zipporah's story, as she managed to maintain her place in Moses' life without disrupting his mission or covenant with God. One of the most mysterious and controversial episodes involving Zapora is found in Exodus 4, where she plays a crucial role in what appears to be a life-or-death situation for Moses. This brief yet dramatic account has puzzled scholars and theologians for centuries due to its cryptic nature and the significant theological implications it carries. Exodus 4:24-26. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. But Zapora took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me," she said. So the Lord let him alone. At that time she said, "bridegroom of blood," referring to circumcision. This passage presents a challenging scenario. God, who had just commissioned Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, suddenly seeks to kill him. The reason for God's anger is not explicitly stated in the text, but it is widely believed to be due to Moses' failure to circumcise his son, a crucial sign of the covenant between God and his people. Genesis 17:10-11. "This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you." Circumcision was a critical marker of the Israelites' identity and their covenant relationship with God, going back to Abraham. By not circumcising his son, Moses was neglecting a fundamental aspect of his faith and the covenantal relationship that God established with Abraham's descendants. This neglect could be seen as a serious breach, especially given Moses' role as the leader chosen by God to deliver his people. In this moment of divine wrath, it is Zapora who acts decisively. She takes a flint knife, a tool often associated with purity and ritual in ancient cultures, and performs the circumcision herself. Her actions suggest that she was aware of the covenantal requirements and understood the seriousness of the situation, possibly even more than Moses did at that moment. Zipporah's words, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me," have been the subject of much debate. The phrase is ambiguous and could reflect a mix of emotions, including anger, relief, or a deeper acknowledgement of the covenant's significance. Some scholars interpret this phrase as Zipporah's expression of the painful reality of the covenant, symbolized by the shedding of blood, which now bound her son and her husband to God's people. Joshua 5:2-3. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath Haraloth. This reference to Joshua's use of flint knives for circumcision highlights the continued importance of this ritual and its association with covenantal purity. Zipporah's use of a flint knife ties her actions to this broader biblical theme of circumcision as a sign of consecration and obedience to God. The significance of Zipporah's intervention also raises questions about the dynamics within her marriage to Moses. As a Midianite, Zapora was not born into the covenant community of Israel, yet her actions demonstrate a profound understanding of its requirements. This episode highlights the tension between their cultural backgrounds and underscores the importance of the covenant in their relationship. It also suggests that Zapora may have had a deeper spiritual insight or awareness, one that Moses, preoccupied with his mission, might have overlooked. Deuteronomy 10:16. "Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer." While this verse speaks metaphorically about circumcising the heart, it ties back to the theme of circumcision as a sign of true commitment to God. Zipporah's quick and decisive action in performing the physical circumcision of her son can be seen as a reflection of her inner understanding of what it means to be in covenant with God, an understanding that transcends mere ritual and points to a deeper spiritual commitment. The circumcision episode is a pivotal moment in the narrative of Moses and Zapora. It not only saves Moses' life, but also reaffirms the importance of the covenant between God and his people. Zipporah's actions reveal her as a figure of strength and spiritual insight, capable of navigating the complex cultural and religious dynamics of her marriage to Moses. This episode, though brief, offers rich material for reflection on the themes of covenant, obedience, and the role of women in the unfolding story of God's people. Now, let's explore Zipporah's return to Midian. As Moses prepared to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, the The Bible provides a brief yet significant mention of Zipporah and her children returning to Midian. This return is mentioned in Exodus 18, where Jethro, Zipporah's father, brings her and her sons back to Moses. Exodus 18:2-3. After Moses had sent away his wife Zapora, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her 2 sons. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land," and the other was named Eliezer, for he said, "My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh." This passage implies that at some point during the events leading up to the Exodus, Moses sent Zipporah and their 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer, back to her father's house in Midian. The reasons for this decision are not explicitly stated in the text, but several possibilities can be considered. One likely reason Moses sent Zapora and their children back to Midian was for their safety. The mission that God had given Moses, to confront Pharaoh and demand the release of the Israelites, was fraught with danger. As Moses prepared to face the most powerful ruler in the ancient world, he may have wanted to ensure that his family was out of harm's way. Exodus 4:19. Now the Lord had said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all those who wanted to kill you are dead." Even though the immediate threat to Moses' life had passed, returning to Egypt still posed significant risks, especially given the anticipated confrontations with Pharaoh and the subsequent plagues. By sending Zapora and the children back to Midian, Moses could focus entirely on his mission without worrying about their safety. Zipporah's return to Midian also raises questions about the dynamics of her relationship with Moses and the cultural challenges she faced. As a Midianite, Zapora was not originally part of the Israelite community. Her marriage to Moses meant that she was living among a people with different customs, traditions, and religious practices. Numbers 12. 1. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. While this verse specifically mentions a Cushite wife, who could be Zipporah or another wife Moses may have taken, it highlights the potential tension and prejudice that Zapora might have faced within the Israelite community. Being married to the leader of the Israelites would have placed her in a challenging position, possibly leading to feelings of isolation or alienation. Returning to her father's house might have provided her with a sense of security and belonging that she struggled to find among the Israelites. The decision to send Zapora and their children back to Midian also indicates the strain that Moses' mission might have placed on his family. Moses was not only leading a nation out of slavery, but also dealing with the intense demands of being God's chosen leader. This responsibility likely limited his ability to be present with his family, leading to a decision that prioritized his mission over family unity in the short term. Exodus 4:20. So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and started back to Egypt, and he took the staff of God in his hand. Initially, Moses took Zapora and their sons with him on his return to Egypt, which shows his intention to keep his family close. However, the subsequent decision to send them back to Midian suggests that the unfolding events in Egypt, plagues, confrontations with Pharaoh, and the impending Exodus might have made it impractical or unsafe for his family to remain with him. Later in Exodus 18, we see that Jethro brings Zapora and the children back to Moses after the Israelites have successfully left Egypt. This reunion is significant not just for Moses and his family, but also for the broader narrative of God's deliverance of Israel. Exodus 18:5-7. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, "I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. This reunion is marked by respect and affection as Moses goes out to meet Jethro and welcomes him with a bow and a kiss. The return of Zapora and the children symbolizes the restoration of Moses' family after a period of separation. It also highlights the importance of family and kinship ties in the broader narrative of God's covenantal relationship with his people. Zipporah's final significant appearance in the Bible occurs during a conflict involving Miriam and Aaron, Moses' siblings. This incident, recorded in the book of Numbers, sheds light on the tensions within Moses' family and offers insight into broader cultural and racial dynamics. Numbers 12:1. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. This verse is the only direct mention of the conflict, but it carries significant implications. The term Cushite generally refers to a person from Cush, a region associated with modern-day Sudan or Ethiopia, indicating African descent. The debate among scholars centers on whether this Cushite wife is Zipporah or another woman Moses may have married. If the reference is indeed to Zapora, it suggests that her foreign status, and possibly her appearance, were points of contention even within Moses' immediate family. The mention of Moses' Cushite wife as a point of contention highlights the cultural and racial tensions that could have affected her acceptance among the Israelites. Zapora was already an outsider, being a Midianite, and the reference to her as a Cushite might emphasize her foreignness in the eyes of Miriam and Aaron. Deuteronomy 7:3-4. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods. And the Lord's anger will burn against you and will quickly destroy you. Although this command was given later, it reflects the general concern among the Israelites about intermarriage with foreign nations. Such marriages were feared to lead to idolatry and a departure from the covenant with God. Miriam and Aaron's criticism might have stemmed from a deep-seated fear of cultural and religious contamination, common in interracial or intercultural unions of that era. Beyond cultural and racial tensions, this incident might also reflect jealousy and power dynamics within the leadership of Israel. Miriam and Aaron were both prominent figures, Miriam as a prophetess and Aaron as the high priest. Their criticism of Moses could have been rooted in jealousy over Moses' unique relationship with God and his leadership role. Numbers 12:2. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? They asked. Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. This verse reveals that the issue was not just about Moses' marriage, but also about perceived inequality in God's communication with them. Miriam and Aaron felt sidelined, questioning why Moses seemed to have a more direct line to God. Their criticism of Moses' wife might have been a way to undermine his authority, using her foreign status as a point of attack. God's response to this incident is swift and severe. He calls Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to the tent of meeting, where he defends Moses and rebukes Miriam and Aaron for speaking against him. Numbers 12:6-8. Listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? God's defense of Moses underscores the special relationship he had with him, one that was unmatched by any other prophet or leader. God's anger is kindled against Miriam and Aaron, but it is Miriam who bears the brunt of the punishment. Numbers 12:10. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous. It became as white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and saw that she had a defiling skin disease. Miriam's leprosy, a condition that rendered her ritually unclean and isolated her from the community, can be seen as a symbolic punishment. It might reflect the consequences of her attempt to exclude and marginalize Moses' wife due to her foreignness. Ironically, the punishment of leprosy, making her white as snow, could be interpreted as a divine rebuke against her criticism of a woman who was likely of darker complexion. Miriam's leprosy and Aaron's plea for her healing show a moment of repentance and reconciliation. Moses, in his humility and compassion, intercedes for his sister. Numbers 12:13-15. So Moses cried out to the Lord, "Please, God, heal her." The Lord replied to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Confine her outside the camp for 7 days. After that she can be brought back." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on till she was brought back. Miriam's confinement outside the camp serves as a period of purification and reflection. It also shows the severity with which God views sins of jealousy, racism, and rebellion against his chosen leader. After 7 days, Miriam is restored to the community. But this episode remains a powerful lesson about the dangers of allowing cultural and racial prejudices to influence relationships within the community of God's people. The encounter with Miriam and Aaron provides a final revealing glimpse into the complexities surrounding Zipporah's role as Moses' wife. Whether the Cushite wife refers directly to Zapora or another woman, the incident highlights the cultural and racial tensions that could have impacted her acceptance within the Israelite community. It also underscores the challenges Moses faced, not only in leading a nation, but in managing family dynamics complicated by issues of race, culture, and jealousy. This episode serves as a reminder of the importance of humility, unity, and God's impartial judgment in the community of believers. Zipporah's story, though brief, is filled with mystery and significance. As Moses' first wife, she played a crucial role in his life. From their initial meeting in Midian to the critical moment where she saved his life, her story reminds us of the complexities of cultural and spiritual differences, and the strength needed to navigate them.